Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another wonderful, fun-filled episode of Watch Me Wrench with your host, Mr. Wrench. Alright, so my videos are not, so wonderful and fun-filled. I know. I'm just being sarcastic. So, here we are today working on my personal favorite vehicle. Yes, I actually like this vehicle more than I like my Corvette. This is my favorite. Best vehicle I've ever owned. Absolutely love it. This is my 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with a 4.7 V8. Has 230,000 miles. It's in great shape. It's never been hit. I'm the original owner. And it's been a wonderful vehicle to me. However, it's been parked on my driveway for like 2 years. I do start it up once a week and drive it around the block, but it hasn't had insurance in about 2 years. So I don't go far, just around the block. So why has it been parked for 2 years? Basically, the engine has been it's breaking up as you accelerate, and when you try to apply a little more throttle, around 3,000 RPM, and it's been puzzling me for quite some time. So I figured today, let me get back on this car, because I like to put it back on the road. I actually like this more than my brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland with the Hemi and all the bells and whistles. This is the best riding Jeep. I have all of the last 3 models of Jeep. I own all 3 of them, and this is my favorite. It's the most comfortable. It's great vehicle. So when you try to accelerate, the engine breaks up around 3,000 RPM. Is that spark? Is that fuel? Is that a sensor? I don't know. I'm not a trained or certified or licensed mechanic. I'm just an average Joe who likes wrenching on his own vehicle. I like to try to fix them myself to save a few bucks, and I like to share some of my videos, so hopefully I can help some of you guys out. Okay, so what I'm doing today is I'm trying to determine if it's fuel or spark. So what I'm doing is right now I'm trying to figure out if it's a fuel pump or the fuel pressure regulator. So what I have here is I got a fuel pressure gauge, and I have it hooked up to the Schrader valve. Hold on. Okay, so I have the fuel line hooked up to the Schrader valve. So, very simple. Hook up that one line to the Schrader valve on the passenger side of the fuel rail. Again, this is a 4.7 V8. The car is off. We have no fuel pressure. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the ignition key, turn it to the on position. I'm not going to start the car. Just going to take the key to the turn the key to the on position, which should prime the fuel pump and the fuel system. And if everything's working right, we should see, again, the engine won't be running, but the key will be on. We should see 30 to 45 PSI. So let me go turn the key, and let's see what we get here. I'll be back. Okay, so I turned the key, and the gauge is reading 15 PSI. But what I'm having to do is I'm having to cycle the key and prime the fuel pump at least 3 times. And that'll give me a more accurate reading. Well, I believe it's more accurate reading. So let me go turn the key 2 more times, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I cycled the key 3 times. And we're at 54 to 55 PSI. Now, according to my research, that's too high. With the car off, we should be 30 to 45 with the car off. So we should be from 30 to 45, but we're more like 55. Okay, so now let's start the car and let's see what we get on the gauge. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so the car is running. With the car running, we should be at 44 to 54 PSI. 44 to 54. Let's see what we get. Okay, the needle is bouncing between 60 and 70. That's not good. That's too much. We should be 44 to 54, and we're bouncing between 60 and 70. Let me apply a little throttle here. Alright, when I give it a little gas, we're at like 64 psi. Let me shut the car off. Okay, so you saw that. With the car running, we were bouncing between 60 and 70 psi. When I gave it a little throttle, it would level out and it would be around 64 psi. So that's way too much. Now, what could cause high fuel pressure? Normally it's a defective fuel pressure regulator. Now this car has a fuel pump mounted in the fuel tank, and then it has a separate fuel pressure regulator / filter. So you have a fuel filter and a fuel pressure regulator built into one, which is mounted outside the tank. And the fuel pressure regulator is what normally would give you, excessive fuel pressure. But I had already changed that not too long ago, and I'm still having the same problem. So the only other thing it could be is the fuel pump. So I am going to replace the fuel pump, which means I have to drop the fuel tank, disconnect a whole bunch of lines. It's not the hardest job, but it's certainly not easy. So to repair and address this engine breaking up issue, when I hit 3,000 RPM, I'm going to replace the fuel pump, and I'll make a separate video on that. So I hope you guys learned something. Now, before you go disconnecting the fuel pressure gauge, before you disconnect the fuel pressure gauge line from the Schrader valve, make sure you relieve the fuel pressure. Mine has a trigger over here on the side, and I have the line going into a Pepsi bottle. Now, I've been messing with this, and sometimes I get a lot of fuel, sometimes I get virtually nothing. Right now I'm not getting anything, but before I started filming, I was getting a steady stream for like a minute coming out. And another thing you want to look for is, the first step you should do is, hook up the gauge and then turn the key to the on position, but don't start the engine. See where the needle falls, and then when you turn the key off, you want to see if the fuel pressure drops quickly. Now, if it drops quickly, that's a problem, but mine has been holding the fuel pressure. Let me go do that for you one more time. Hold on. Okay, so I cycled the key, and I'm at 55. Now I'm going to go shut the key off. Let's see what happens. Okay, so the key is off, and it's holding pressure. But I tested this before. I waited like 20 minutes, and it was still holding pressure. Eventually, after several hours, it will drop, but it should maintain pressure for quite some time. So next video, we are going to pull out the fuel pump. I'm going to hope to put it back on the road. So that was one problem that it has. The engine started breaking up, and then at the same time, I got like that massive death wobble, where if I hit a pothole or just a little bump on the highway, the wheels was shaking uncontrollably. And then when I got under the car, I noticed all of the bushings on the front, like steering components and suspension, were like completely, all the rubber was completely shot, dry rotted, falling off, missing. So we got to rebuild the front end and change all the bushings in the front end. So those are the two main things this car needs to get back on the road. So I'm going to hope to take care of those two issues and get this thing back on the road. I'll try to clean up these headlights. I already tried with this mother's polish, but that did absolutely nothing. I'm going to try sanding it and see what happens. If not, I'll buy some cheap replacement ones. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back. If you have any questions or comments, leave that down below. And if you could please click the like and subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day.